3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister new homes with terrifying secrets uncovered. It's every parent's dream to create a safe haven for their child. But what if, behind those inviting facades and picket fences, lay a horrifying truth? Meet Sarah, a single mother who thought she'd found the perfect suburban home for her and her 8-year-old daughter, Emma. The warm glow of the setting sun bathed their new neighborhood in golden light. Neighbors waved hello from their immaculate yards. A picturesque postcard come to life. Yet, just days after moving in, the whispers of dread began to slither through the walls. One dreary afternoon, while rummaging through the dusty attic, Sarah's fingers brushed against something oddly shaped in the shadows. Curiosity piqued. She unearthed an old toy that had seen better days, but that was nothing compared to what she discovered etched into the wooden beams above. "They're watching. Don't trust the quiet ones." The words were a chilling invitation into madness, tightening a knot of dread in her stomach. She brushed it off, convincing herself it was the idle scribbles of a long-gone occupant. But lingering unease gnawed at her mind, awakening instincts she thought had dulled. As she stepped back into the world below, she noticed the neighbors glancing her way, their eyes growing wide as Emma giggled outside, oblivious to the subtle tension in the air. The friendly waves felt insincere, shadows lurking beneath those smiling faces. The atmosphere was thick with unseen whispers at night, pulling Sarah from her restless sleep. As her eyes flickered open, something clawed at the back of her mind. She reached over to the box of newspaper clippings she carelessly shoved aside. The headlines chilled her blood. Mysterious disappearances haunt suburban community. Each article perfectly aligned with the eerie messages in her attic. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's heart raced as she confronted a neighbor about the hidden horrors of their community. But a hollow laugh escaped their lips, their forced smile sending a chill through her. "Those stories are just urban legends." The words felt more like a warning than a reassurance. Panic gripped Sarah tightly, the pleasant suburban facade warping into something much darker. Each creak in the house reverberated through her bones, echoes of something hiding just out of sight. Determined to unravel the mystery, Sarah inspected every crevice, feeling the heavy burden of empty eyes watching her every move. An urge bloomed within her to bolt the front door, to shield Emma from whatever invisible threat loomed in the shadows. The tension thickened day by day, whispers growing louder, until they felt like a swarm of gnawing insects. Then, as she unfolded a faded map revealing the secrets buried within their neighborhood, a terrifying realization hit her. Something haunted those walls. Something dangerous. A soft voice pierced the silence, echoing from the attic. "Mom?" It was Emma. A chill shot through Sarah as she dropped the map. The temperature seemed to plummet, ice crystals forming in her veins. She rushed toward the attic stairs, the weight of lost innocence heavy on her chest. The messages hadn't just been a warning. They were beckoning to them. They might be the key to a horrifying truth, and time was slipping through her fingers like sand. Would Sarah discover the cryptic secrets before they devoured the life she desperately sought to protect? Or would those walls hold them hostage, ensnared by their haunting past? Fear pooled in Sarah's stomach as she reached the attic door. "Emma?" Her voice trembled, swallowed by the shadows. Silence answered her, heavy and oppressive. Heart pounding, she pushed the door open, the hinges creaking like a warning. The attic was dimly lit, dust swirling in the beam of her flashlight. Shadows danced menacingly along the beams, and the once benign old toys seemed to shift with a life of their own. "Emma?" felt like a plea now, desperate and raw. "What did you find?" Emma's voice meekly floated through the air, startling Sarah. She turned quickly, but no one was there. Goosebumps ran along her arms, as if the very air around her was charged with dread. "Stay there. Sarah shouted as she stepped cautiously into the attic, scanning for her daughter. A sharp chill bit at her skin as the first thoughts of something sinister crept back in. She retraced her steps back to the corner where she found the map. It lay there, half hidden under a forgotten pile of brittle newspapers. As she reached for it, she felt the weight of eyes on her, cold and haunting. Swallowing her fear, she snatched the map with trembling hands. The faded ink conveyed stories long buried, places marked with ominous red excess. An eerie sensation washed over her when she recognized one of the spots, an old playground just near the edge of their neighborhood. "Mom, I'm scared." Emma's voice quivered again, but this time it seemed closer, echoing off the walls. Sarah's heart raced. Where was she? "Emma, I'll be right there." Abandoning the map, Sarah dashed back toward the attic door. But as she reached the threshold, the air shifted, a whirlwind of cold closing in around her. "Mom!" The cry came again, this time tinged with panic. She bolted down the stairs, nearly tripping over herself. Each step felt like a race against an unseen predator. As she reached the bottom, the living room stood eerily still, sunlight scattering through the windows, illusions of safety in an unfathomably threatening place. "Emma!" The name came out in a breathless whisper, laced with fear. She scanned the room, searching for her daughter. Nothing, and suffocating silence filled the space. Suddenly, she heard a knock. It was soft at first, just shy of a quick, clipped rhythm, a lure wrapping around her senses. It drew her toward the back of the house, where sunlight faded into dark corners and long shadows slipped across the floor. She crept closer, each step echoing in her mind as she followed that persistent knock. Then it came again, louder this time, sending birds in the trees flapping away in surprise. This was not a sound she recognized, not from Emma's games. It was urgent. It was relentless. Freezing in the doorway to the back room, fear curdled in her stomach when she noticed a faint glimmer just outside the glass door, a sliver of something bright. She pushed the door open slowly, heart thrumming like a drum. Outside, where the backyard should have been a live tableau of flowers, children's toys, and laughter, she found something else entirely. The playground loomed in the distance, bathed in an unnatural glow under the thickening dusk, a place marked by sorrow. It beckoned to her. "Emma!" Panic clawed at her throat. She moved, faster now, toward the playground. As she crossed onto the cool grass, a rustling sound followed her, the shadows gathering into menacing forms. A chill coursed through her as she neared. "Emma!" She cried again, frantically scanning the darkness and bending low, praying for any sign of her daughter. And then she saw it. A shadow flitted behind the swing set. "Mom!" Emma's south voice, so close yet so far. Sarah rushed forward, each step filled with dread. The playground stood abstract against the darkening sky, pulsing with life and yet utterly forsaken. That hollow laughter echoed her neighbor's hollow laughter. As she neared where the shadows twined and coiled, she could hear them whispering, friendly voices turned sinister. It was a cacophony of secrets begging to be unveiled, and it chilled her to the marrow. "They know something." Then everything went black. The playground stood silent, empty under the gaze of an unfathomable dark. What had happened to Emma? The whispers grew louder, clawing at her mind like the words she had found in the attic. Would she ever uncover the truth buried within? As the night enveloped her tight, Sarah realized a terrifying thought. Perhaps she wasn't the one chasing the past anymore. What if it was coming for her? Was the past coming back, ready to reclaim the living? Or was it searching for someone it would never let go? Dread wrapped around Sarah like a suffocating blanket as she emerged into the darkness that swallowed the playground. The chill cut through her clothes, the night air thicker than she ever remembered it. "Emma!" She called out again, her voice barely rising above the looming silence, echoing back like an unwelcome mantra. A shiver traced down her spine as she stepped onto the cold, damp ground. The familiar creak of the swings swayed gently, but there was no breeze. Something was moving behind them, the shadows elongated, twisting and shifting, and for a moment, Sarah was sure she saw a figure dart amidst the dark, more phantom than flesh. "Mom!" The call came again, desperate, but this time beneath the laughter, piercing through the laughter that rang hollow around her. Felt wrong, corrupted. She hesitated. Every instinct was telling her to run, to retreat back into the light of her home. But the sound of Emma's voice drove her forward. If she could just reach her, if she could just find her suddenly, the laughter stopped. An unsettling quiet engulfed the playground, trapping the air in Sarah's lungs. The shadows shifted, now forming dark shapes that hovered near the edges of her vision. "Emma?" she whispered, her heart thrumming wildly. With each step she took toward the swings, the ground felt softer, as if something lay beneath the grass, pulling at her feet. She glanced down, dread pooling in her gut. The grass was darker here, almost black spongy, as if something had soaked into the earth long ago. "Mommy!" The shout came again, but it was different this time. It was almost too perfect, too sweet, almost taunting. The hairs on her arms stood on end. Was that really Emma? She had no idea anymore. Love warred with fear as she lunged toward the origin of the sound. "Emma, where are you?" Behind the sliding boards, shadows snickered, whispers swirling like a breeze around her ears, teasing her. "Don't you want to play?" they seemed to say. We've been waiting. Her pulse quickened. Every instinct told her to run, yet her feet felt glued to the earth. She was being pulled into the strange world, one that shimmered beneath the moonlight. Then, with one decisive move, she rounded the corners of the slide, her heart racing. That S when she saw it, a faint outline in the shadows, a small figure with dark curls. "Emma!" Relief surged through her veins, but it quickly morphed into a fresh wave of terror as she got closer. Emma stood there, but her face was blank, eyes staring into nothing, as though she was trapped in a trance. "Mommy," Emma murmured, voice barely a whisper, as if she was walking through sleep. "Emma, what's wrong?" Panic coursed through Sarah. She reached out to pull her daughter into her arms, but as her hand brushed the girl's shoulder, a jolt of electricity shot through her. The laughter erupted again, louder this time, ringing through the playground, and as if by some dark magic, the other children appeared, their faces shadowed, their eyes glinting like black marbles. They surrounded Emma, grinning with grotesque glee. "Join us," one of them cackled, a thin voice that felt like nails on a chalkboard. "No, Emma!" Sarah shrieked, yanking her daughter back. But the grip of those dark shadows was too strong. A suffocating fog rolled in, swirling around her legs, seeping into her lungs. "Let her go!" Sarah screamed, despair raking her voice raw. Suddenly, the playground surged with life, the equipment rattling, the laughter rising into an uproar that sent fear racing deep inside Sarah's bones. She felt the overwhelming tide of darkness press in, and in that moment, she realized the shadows weren't just there to watch, they wanted to claim what was theirs. With desperate energy, she pulled Emma to her side, feeling the icy breath of the shadows gnashing behind them. There was no time for questions. It was survival or succumbing to the darkness. "Hold on to me." Without knowing if Emma would follow, she turned, racing toward the edge of the playground, where the grip of shadows felt slightly looser. At the threshold, a voice echoed, back, low and sinister, "You can't escape what already knows you too well." As they burst beyond the playground's edge, Sarah turned back one last time to see the children's twisted smiles vanish into the darkness. The laughter faded, but something lingered in the air, a promise of what awaited within the deep shadows behind them. Would they find safety in the light, or would the shadows come calling again? With the haunting whispers still ringing in her ears, Sarah rushed onward, heart pounding. The night was far from over. What lay ahead could very well be worse than what had chased them away from the playground. But she knew she had to confront the truth, whatever that may bring. Courage surged within her, fueled by a desperate need to protect her daughter. "Emma, we're going to get through this." But would their hope be enough? Would they decode the horrors that waited in the dark? The question loomed like an unforgiving shadow, relentless and terrifying, as they plunged deeper into the night. They stumbled away from the playground, the oppressive darkness seeming to close in tighter with every step they took. Sarah kept an iron grip on Emma's hand, the small warmth of it providing a fragile comfort against the dread invading her mind. But as they moved deeper into the shadows, that comforting grip grew increasingly cold, like ice creeping through her veins. "Mommy, I don't want to go home." Emma's voice was a wisp of sound, almost lost in the humid air thick with foreboding. "We have to, honey. Promise we'll be safe in the house." But even as she said it, doubt snaked its way into her mind. Home didn't feel safe anymore, not after what they had just encountered. Each step felt like trudging through molasses, every sound magnified, crickets chirping like the ticking of a foreboding clock, the rustle of leaves whispering secrets Sarah didn't want to hear. Could that be something else lurking in the depths? Were the shadows still watching them, waiting for just the right moment to strike? They reached the front porch, but the house loomed ominously before them. The windows stared back like hollow eyes. A flurry of memories washed over Sarah, the warmth of laughter, the smell of fresh cookies she had baked for Emma. Now those memories felt tainted, overshadowed by the nightmare they had just escaped. "Mommy, can't we stay outside?" Emma's small face was turned up toward her, eyes wide and pleading. "No, Emma, we can't. We need to get inside," Sarah insisted, but her voice trembled, her feet felt heavy, unwilling. As they crossed the threshold, the air shifted. The creaking floorboards echoed eerily, their sound reverberating as if they were trying to warn her. A gnawing sense of wrongness wrapped around Sarah like a tightening noose. She thought she heard a soft snicker echo behind them, but when she spun around, nothing was there. Just the dark of the night swallowing the porch like a hungry beast. "Mommy, can I watch TV?" Emma asked, her voice still small, but now tinged with a hint of eagerness. "Sure, but just for a little bit." She forced a smile, but Emma didn't seem convinced. The girl shifted nervously, fingers tangled in the hem of her shirt. Sarah flipped the lights on, the kitchen illuminating in starkness that felt sharper than usual, as if the light itself was scrutinizing them. She turned on the television, letting the flickering images wash over them like a lifeline. As Emma settled in front of the screen, Sarah felt drawn to the window. She couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her, tracking her movements. Peering outside, the streetlight shimmered weakly, revealing the enormous shadows that seemed to dance just beyond the halo of light. They writhed like hungry beasts waiting for the darkness to fall. "Mommy, I feel funny," Emma said suddenly, her small voice breaking through Sarah's growing dread. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "I feel like the shadows want to play." A chill gripped Sarah's heart. Emma, in her innocence, couldn't comprehend what she was saying. "Those are just shadows, honey. They can't hurt us," she insisted, trying to sound reassuring. But as Sarah watched, the shadows outside swayed, forming shapes that almost resembled the children's faces she had seen at the playground. She felt a trickle of sweat run down her back, a creeping realization. They hadn't left the darkness behind. "Emma, come here, please," she urged, voice strained. A compulsion to gather her daughter into her arms surged within her, desperate to shield her from whatever was out there. Just as the screen flashed a static interruption, a harsh knock echoed through the house, a sound so sudden it made Sarah jump. Her heart raced. "Who's there?" she called, but her voice wavered, uncertainty swimming in her chest. Silence answered her, but she could almost feel that laughter rising again, echoing from somewhere deep within the shadows. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emma's voice trembled, eyes wide, mirrors of fear reflecting the chaos that now churned in Sarah's own gut. "Stay here," Sarah commanded, even as she felt the tug of anxiety clawing at her mind. Would it be safer to stay hidden or to confront this? Another knock, louder this time, felt insistent, demanding. "Open the door." The voice was unmistakably Emma's, but it was deep and distorted. "Wrong." "Emma, what is happening?" Panic spread through Sarah like wildfire. "I'm right here, Mommy," the real Emma exclaimed from the couch, confusion in her eyes. But from the darkness, that voice repeated, pounding against her sanity. "Open up, Mommy, I want to play." The shadows outside thickened, pressing against her, erasing the boundary between safety and terror. Before Sarah could process what to do, The front door began to shake as if something or someone was trying to break in. How long could she endure the torment? Was there truly a way to escape? As fear clawed at her throat, she knew the line between fantasy and nightmare was fading fast. Something was trying to step into their world, and they had already begun losing the battle. What waited on the other side of that door? The answer could change everything. The knocking continued, harsh and relentless. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each thud echoing the fear that swelled inside her. "Mommy, let us not answer it." Emma's voice quavered, sensing the growing dread in her mother. Sarah's throat was dry, her mind racing through frantic thoughts. Was it a trick, a game, or something worse? "Stay behind me," she whispered, pulling Emma closer, screening her child with her body, ready to make a stand. Breath caught in her throat. She slowly approached the door, arms taut with apprehension. "Who is out there?" she called, trying to sound authoritative, turning toward the window instead. Outside, the shadows gathered like a thick fog. They twisted and elongated, reshaping into figures, teasing her with familiar forms that danced just out of reach. If she squinted hard enough, she could almost discern the faces, hear the whispers of lost laughter. "Let me in." The voice rang out again from the other side, distortion making it sound like something buried, pushed through with raw intention. "I want to play, Emma. Don't look," Sarah urged, stepping to block her daughter's line of sight. But even as she said it, she felt the pressure of the door increase, as if something was pressing against it from the outside. "Stay back. Stay." Another crack echoed as the door trembled in its frame. She used her shoulder to push against it, the wood biting into her skin. "Go to the kitchen. Get the knife." But Mommy Emma's small hand trembled as she glanced back, the flicker of the television reflecting wide eyes filled with terror. "Now." Sarah's voice did not waver. She felt the darkness pooling in her gut, threatening to consume her. Each moment felt infinite, with the urge to flee screaming through her mind. But she had to protect Emma. And then, a sudden silence fell. The knocking ceased, leaving only the thumping of Sarah's heart echoing in her ears. Something was waiting. The shadows outside pulsed, and every instinct screamed at her that whatever was out there was alive, watching, biding its time. "Mommy?" Emma's voice was small, uncertain. "Emma, go," she urged, nudging her daughter toward the kitchen. But before the girl could obey, the voice outside morphed again, this time wrapping itself around a sweeter, more gentle tone. "Mommy, please, I'm scared. Let me in." Emma froze, her tiny heart caught between trust and fear. "Mommy, it's me, I want to come inside." Sarah felt her breath hitch in her throat. The realization struck like lightning. This was not Emma but a malicious imitation, one that played on her fears. "Emma!" The stark edge of panic dragged Sarah back to the moment. "Get to the kitchen now." As her daughter stumbled off, Sarah's eyes never left the door. The sinister, warped voice continued. "You'll let me in eventually because that's what mothers do." With a shattering crash, the door flew open, slamming against the wall with the force of a thunderstorm. There, in the threshold, stood a grotesque version of her daughter, eyes glimmering with an unnatural light, and twisted smiles framed in shadows that surged behind it. "Surprise, Mommy. I brought friends." Behind the false Emma, shadows swirled and twisted, taking shapes that sent a cold shiver skittering down Sarah's spine. Figures of children's faces she had seen that day at the playground lined the darkness, the distorted echoes of their laughter filling the air, pulling at the very fibers of her sanity. Desperation surged as she realized the room was closing in. The smell of damp earth filled her nostrils, overlaid with sweetness that turned sour like a rotten fruit. "Get away," she screamed, gripping the knife tightly in her hand, emotions roiling inside her, a violent mix of fear and the instinct to fight for her child. But each step she took resulted in a slithering retreat from the monstrous form before her as the shadows moved closer. "Let us play forever," echoed through the churning fest of darkness. What could Sarah do against that? The walls pulsed as if the house itself was a living thing, wanting to swallow them whole. And when she glanced back towards the kitchen, Emma stood there, wide-eyed and terrified, still unaware of the monster laid bare at the doorway. What lay ahead? Would she manage to protect her daughter? Or would they both succumb to the cruel play of darkness? The disparity between her love and the oppressive fear collapsed toward an inevitable breaking point. One decision could seal their fate. Where would she find the strength to fight back against this nightmare? Time was slipping away. The grotesque figure of Emma loomed larger. The shadows writhed around it, weaving an intricate tapestry of terror. Sarah's mind raced, scrambling for a plan. The knife glinted in her grip, a meager metal glimmer against the dark void threatening to engulf them. "Mommy, don't you want to play?" The false Emma stepped forward, her voice syrupy and inviting, yet laced with venom. "It'll be so much fun, we can all play together. Get back," Sarah shouted, her voice echoing off the walls, pushing against the suffocating darkness. She felt Emma's tiny fingers grip her hand from behind, and her heart split at the sight of pure fear etched on her real daughter's face, still innocent yet trembling. The monstrous version of Emma tilted its head, the shadows curling like smoke around its body. A half-smile twisted across its face. It was wrong. Everything felt wrong, and before Sarah could catch her breath, a ripple of cold air swept through the doorway, chilling her to the bone. "Are you ready for the game, Mommy?" The creature's voice morphed, shifting into a symphony of shrill giggles that clawed at Sarah's sanity. The laughter of children echoed, a distorted choir rising behind the false daughter, their faces blurring together in an unsettling collage of joy and horror. "Emma, we have to move," Sarah hissed, tightening her grip around the knife. The room felt smaller, pressing in on her, the oppressive darkness threatening to snuff out any light. "Why won't you let me in? I just want my mommy," the false Emma pouted, eyes shimmering with that unnatural glow. "Stop it," Sarah screamed, taking a small step back as dread rolled in waves over her. She glanced toward the kitchen, betraying the slightest flicker of hope. A faint glimmer of the knife. If only Emma would listen. She needed a distraction. Anything to break the enchantment of the nightmarish figure in front of her. "Let us play a different game," Sarah suggested, voice shaking but steadying with resolve. "Let us see who can count to 10 the fastest." The desperation clawed at her throat. She struck the words out, feeling foolish yet determined. "Oh, counting? I love counting." The creature's smile stretched impossibly wide. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. It liked her idea? What kind of game was this? "Ready?" 1, Sarah blurted, her heart racing. 2, the shadow children began to pulse in rhythm, their laughter turning surreal. "Join in," barked out distorted echoes. 3, 4, she continued, her breath quickening. Each number felt like a flicker of light against the endless dark. Each sounds like a plea of survival, weaving into a morbid lullaby. Inevitably, the false Emma echoed after her word for word, voice a sick parody of innocence, while the shadow shapes peeled away from the walls, creeping ever closer, hungry for the moment of revelation when Sarah would falter. 5, 5, it screeched in delight, the shadows swirling, the air thickening, pressing close to her. "Mommy, what's going on?" Emma cried, trembling behind her. "Do I go on?" 6, the creature's voice dripped with anticipation, the shadows thrumming at the edges of sanity. "Do it," shouted a whisper from within the dark, a voice Sarah couldn't recognize but felt shiver through her core. "End the game now." "What do I do?" Sarah wrestled with the words, urgency spiraling, fear turning into ice in her veins. Behind her, her real daughter quivered, innocence hanging by a thread. 7, 8, 9. The air grew thicker. The moment electrified with peril. The threat felt tangible, suffocating. 10. She cried, the word laced with defiance. "Game over." The false Emma responded gleefully, the shadows exploding into chaos around them, childlike laughter twisting into shrieks of torment. Sarah's lungs tightened as dread coiled tighter, and she knew this was no game at all. What would happen now? What chaos would be unleashed when the darkness fully erupted? Would she find the way to save her daughter, or would they both be pulled into this hellish game forever? The silence that followed felt hollow, brimming with unspoken danger. The shadows, brushing closer, waiting for the next move. Tension climbed in the now stifling room. Sarah could feel each heartbeat thudding against her chest like a warning bell. The shadows swirled, now emboldened by the false Emma's sadistic glee, ready to strike as if poised around the edge of a diving board. "Mommy," Emma whimpered, pulling at Sarah's sleeve, her fear palpable, anchoring her in a reality that felt increasingly fragile. But how could Sarah protect her, with a monster masquerading as her daughter blocking their escape? Sarah whispered, kneeling down momentarily, trying to funnel all her warmth into her real daughter's terrified eyes. "We need to be brave, Em. On the count of 3, we run for the door. You trust me?" Emma nodded, though her eyes mirrored the black abyss behind the figure, uncertainty painting her small face. 1, 2, not yet, not yet, the false Emma squealed, leaping forward with a perfectly orchestrated twist of her wrist, a mockery of innocence wrapped in shadows. "Let us stay together. The shadows don't bite unless you want them to." Panic ignited in Sarah's gut. She couldn't let this thing play with their minds any longer. 3, she shouted, desperation fueling her voice as she grabbed Emma's small hand. They bolted. The kitchen floor felt slick beneath their feet, the darkness chasing them, lapping at their heels like a ravenous dog. Shadows twisted into grotesque figures on the walls around them, pulsating and swirling, hungry for the warmth and life that the two clung to. Just as they reached the doorway, tendrils of darkness lashed out, slithering smoothly as serpents, wrapping around Sarah's ankles and pulling her back. Her scream tore through the air, mingling with the shrieks of laughter echoing in the walls, as if the house itself rejoiced in their turmoil. "Mommy," Emma cried, eyes wide as she yanked back with all her strength. "I'm right here," Sarah gasped, fighting against the constricting shadows, adrenaline almost overpowering the paralysis gripping her. She could feel the knife slipping from her grip, sliding to the floor with a clatter that rang like a bell tolling doom. "Please, let us go," Emma begged, her small voice trembling against the monstrous hymn of laughter. "You think they'll let you leave?" The false Emma taunted, its sickening grin dilating in the dim frame of the doorway. "We're just getting started." The oppressive darkness thickened, growing heavier, forcing down on their shoulders. It whispered dreadful secrets in Sarah's ear, taunting her with visions of endless night her and Emma lost, alone in a world twisted by this abomination. "We have to fight," Sarah shouted, determination cutting through the fear. With a surge of strength, she kicked at the shadowy tendrils entangling her, and they recoiled slightly, hissing like agitated vipers. Emma surprised her by stepping back beside her mother, defiance etched across her tiny features. "You're not my sister," she shouted fiercely. You lie. I'm not playing." The false Emma recoiled, its ghastly laughter faltering for a moment, revealing a glimpse of something darker than just illusions. "Ah, truth, it burns like the brightest light," it hissed, shadows shrinking as if recoiling from yet another flicker of hope. "But every truth has a price, dear child. You must learn to play the right way." "Mom, what is happening?" Emma's voice quivered, but she stood firm, rooted beside Sarah as fear turned into brave resolve. The bond between them glowed defiantly against the dark. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward like a wave, overwhelming them both. Sarah felt cold tendrils winding around her wrists, then all light faded into utter darkness. But they were not done yet. The struggle churned within the void around them, and against the shadow's relentless pull, a soft glow flickered to life between them, stirring the darkness like a flame beneath the waves. "What is this?" the false Emma cried out, voice tinged with rage and fear. That flicker began to pulse and grow, illuminating the suffocating shadows for the first time. "Hold on, Emma," Sarah yelled, grasping her daughter tighter, heart pounding with renewed purpose. As the light throbbed, she felt an urge to confront whatever lay behind the darkness, to challenge fate itself. But what waited for them in that flickering illumination? Before she could find out, the world twisted, and darkness roared back, devouring the light. How long could they hold out against the unseen horror lurking just beyond their vision? What fate awaited the two as they hovered on the brink of despair? The shadows seemed to breathe around them, an inky fog that thickened in deliciously wicked anticipation. Sarah's heart raced. She felt the weight of despair pressing down harder than the darkness itself, like 1,000 hands of dread tugging at her soul. Clenching Emma's hand tightly, she felt the warmth of her daughter, something solid to fight for amidst the suffocating terror. The oppressive silence that followed their plunge into darkness weighed so heavily it almost screamed. Then came a crack, a single sharp sound not unlike the breaking of glass echoing through the void. It pierced the silence, drawing out a slow, menacing murmur, as if the walls themselves were whispering conspiracies. "Mommy?" Emma's voice trembled, trying to find the strength to navigate what felt dangerously like a nightmare. "Stay close to me." Sarah's voice wavered as she sensed the impending dread swell like an approaching storm. She took a step forward, as each footfall echoed, swallowed by the darkness around them. "Are you scared?" Emma asked innocently, her small fingers squeezing Sarah's hand. "Scared? No, I'm just ready to put an end to this." Sarah wished she sounded more convincing. Suddenly, the false Emma's laughter erupted like an unexpected thunderclap, reverberating from all around them. "You really think you can end this, Mommy? You don't even know how deep the game goes." This taunt sent shivers racing down Sarah's spine. "What game?" she demanded, urgency clouding her mind. The oppressive darkness shifted. Familiar shapes began to materialize out of the gloom, distorted toys from Emma's past, twisted dolls with hollow eyes and razor-sharp smiles, their faces gleaming in the dim light as if hungry for attention, each whispering secrets only the shadows had heard. "You see?" The false Emma cooed, its voice dripping with an unnatural sweetness. "They always come back to play. They'll help us find you, and you won't escape that easily." "Get away from her!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging once more, her gut twisting with danger. She pulled Emma closer and faced the figure. "You're not Emma. You need to leave us alone." "Such fire," the imposter mocked, leaning forward, its figure melting into an array of shadows. "But fire can burn. It can also destroy everything you care about." Suddenly, images flickered in the darkness. Snapshots of moments they hadn't experienced but felt deeply unsettling, flashes of the past, trickling into their present like poison. Sarah saw herself standing by a grave, a tombstone inscribed with a name she couldn't identify, surrounding whispers of mournful memories she'd never lived. "Stop!" Emma's voice rang with newfound courage, cutting through the veils of chaos. "You hurt us once, but you won't again. You'll never be my sister." With that challenge, Sarah felt a spark ignite within her, a rush of maternal love, more potent than any shadow that sought to consume them. The void responded violently, shuddering with anger, attempting to snuff out the light that flickered within them once again. The walls vibrated, shadows cavorting, mocking their sudden strength. "Foolish children," the false Emma hissed. "This is only the beginning." Then, in a spiraling rush, a blinding light burst forth from Sarah and Emma. It rippled through the blackness, tearing gnarled fingers of darkness as it swirled with incandescent fury. But just as swiftly as it arrived, the light began to flicker and wane, battling against the relentless onslaught of shadows. "Hold on, Em," Sarah gasped, overwhelmed but determined. If they fell now, what would remain of them? Could they extinguish the age-old horror clinging to that house? The darkness tightened its grip, and the shadows howled, hungry and feral. It wasn't over, not yet. Each heartbeat counted, echoing like a countdown that deepened the silence around them. Then, with a horrifying crack, the shadows surged back. Would they drown in the light, or would it lead them to something far worse? The answer lay just beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. The shadows roared like a storm crashing against the shore, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribcage, each beat a desperate plea for survival. The flickering light surged and waned, a heartbeat in its own chaotic rhythm. Emma trembled beside her, a small island in a sea of darkness. "You can't hide from what you've lost." The false Emma's voice ricocheted in the void, an echo of something that should have never existed. "It knows you, it remembers, Then it happened, an explosion of sound. An anguished scream that drowned out everything. Sarah's throat tightened as a memory invaded her mind. A slipstream of faces, cries, moments that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. She saw herself standing in a cold, dim room, alone, haunted. A shadow in the corner. A child's laughter eerily joyful. "Mommy, don't let it take me." Emma's voice pulled her back, sharp and urgent. "I want tea, I swear." The promise ripped from Sarah's throat, raw and unyielding. But even as she spoke, shadows clawed at her heart, feeding the very fears that twisted within her. The ground shook, and the air thickened. Sarah felt themselves being pulled, both towards the light within them and the darkness lurking just beyond. Despair hung in the air like the stench of sweat and burnt offerings. Just ahead, the dark silhouette of the imposter loomed larger, almost tangible, a whirlpool ready to drown them. With every fiber of her being, Sarah pushed forward. "No, you want tea, take her. You can't." Another crack reverberated, deep and resonant, spilling curses across the suffocating darkness. The toys, the cursed relics of Emma's childhood, slithered closer, voices hissing a treacherous lullaby that slashed through Sarah's resolve. They twisted, taking shapes of fear she'd never imagined. But then there was a flicker, a shimmer of hope in the din. The light pulsed instinctively, pushing against the shadows, almost as if it had a will of its own. It burst forth, illuminating the hellish room for a split second. Just enough. "Mommy, look." Emma pointed, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't the false Emma that stood before them. Within the crawling nightmare, she saw another form, one that echoed their desperate endeavor. A figure swathed in light, arms wide, face filled with a knowing warmth. The real Emma. "No, I made you," the imposter screeched, fury boiling over as the other Emma's figure began to fade into the void. "You can't choose. You'll lose everything." But the light pulled them closer, the warmth a beacon, its familiarity washing over them like the promise of dawn after the darkest night. Sarah felt Emma's grip tightening around hers, an anchor against the surging tide. "Mommy, I'm not afraid." Emma's clear voice rang out, a battle cry piercing the oppressive silence. "Let us go to her." They surged forward, the light pushing against the shadows with a strength born of love, a defiance that reverberated within their souls. Yet, in that moment of hope, the darkness shrieked, a dreadful sound that clawed at the edges of their resolve. "You think you can escape? This is where I thrive." As they dove deeper into the light's embrace, Sarah felt something shift, a tremor, a ripple of dread. The shadows writhed relentlessly, looming over them, as if aware they were losing their prey. Suddenly, the ground cracked and a chasm opened beneath them, yawning wide with a darkness so deep, it felt alive. "Mommy!" Emma screamed, losing balance, her tiny form starting to slip. "Hold on." Sarah reached for her, but the shadows wrapped tighter, pulling at her like a pack of ravenous wolves. The darkness roared again, fangs bared, ready to devour them whole. In that moment, the light flickered out, plunging them into the black again. The weight of despair coiled around Sarah's heart, squeezing tighter. What would they lose if they didn't escape? Would the truth drown them? Or could they find a way to reclaim the light before it was snuffed out forever? Just then, a chilling whisper brushed against her ear. "It's time to choose." The question lingered, haunting the air between them, as the shadows drew closer, hungry for the souls that dared to stand against them. All the while, the chasm beneath them opened wider, a gaping maw ready to consume the last remnants of their fight. In that moment, suspended between light and annihilation, Sarah's heart shattered. The whispers of the shadows coiled tightly around her. "It's time to choose." The voice echoed, cold as ice, making her breath hitch. Holding Emma's hand, she focused on the warmth of her daughter, the lifeline tethering her to hope. Look at me." Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, trembling but resolute. "We're going to fight. We're going to choose love." The shadows thrashed in frustration, their dark shapes writhing like snakes. "Love?" They mocked, their mockery piercing her heart like a dagger. How pitiful. But Sarah felt that flicker within her ignite into flames. They were the truth. They were the light she could feel growing in the pit of her stomach. A warmth fierce enough to slice through the depth of despair. "We are not afraid," she shouted, pulling Emma closer. "You may think you own the darkness, but we have each other. You can't take us." "Mommy!" Emma screamed, voice shaking but fierce, her small body crackling with courage. "I won't let you win." With a sudden surge, Sarah turned to face the widening chasm, the shadows eager, clawing towards her as if willing her to give in. "Emma, hold on tight." She felt the pull of the shadows, the edges of reality blurring into something wretched. But the light flickered out again, and then an echo ringed through the void. Soft laughter twisted into something cruel. It was the distinct sound of a child, but not Emma. "You can't choose," the false Emma sang. "You'll wish for me. You always do." With resolve lining her spine, Sarah plunged forward, arms outstretched, the real Emma behind her, connected by their burning need to be free. The shadows surged and twisted, faces snapping and gnashing beneath the weightlessness of doubt. "Keep going," Sarah cried, fury boiling in her veins. Her fear transformed into power, pulsing like a heartbeat. As they neared the light, a shimmering visage of laughter, sunshine, and safety, Sarah felt her heart thunder with purpose. "We are love. We are joy." Their voices blended, pushing out the lies, the crooked forms aiming to grasp at their minds. And then, just as everything dimmed, the glow ignited their world in an explosion of brilliance. Pain erupted as the shadows shrieked. Twisted bodies thrashed violently, losing form, their very essence fraying at the edges. Light engulfed them, cleansed them from the chilling grasp and illuminating the void. "What is happening?" Emma gasped, eyes wide as the colors melded around them. Churning shadows spiraled away into nothing. "Mommy, just hold on tight." Sarah grasped her daughter's hand, feeling their warmth band tighter as they fell forward, a cascade of light breaking the surface. Suddenly, a blinding radiance enveloped them, wrapping around their bodies like a protective cocoon, transporting them through the veil of darkness. They landed on cool grass, sunlight beaming softly upon their skin, awakening them to familiar sounds. Birds sang brightly overhead, and a gentle breeze kissed their cheeks. The playground stood before them, real, vibrant, unchanged. "Mom?" Emma blinked, the shadow of fear still floating on her skin. "Did we win?" Tears flowed freely down Sarah's cheeks, relief flooding her chest. "I think we did, baby." I can hear soft laughing. Emma's brows knitted in confusion. "Not the scary type?" She shook her head, bringing Emma closer. "No, the happy kind. Promise." In that moment, the old playground, once filled with twisted echoes of fright, burst into life. Children played, laughter ringing sweetly, joy lifting the weight of dread that had followed them. Together, they turned to face their home. The once oppressive facade now radiated with warmth, the sunlight glimmering over its roof, welcoming them back. As they stepped toward the door, Sarah felt the past lift, the shadows fading into whispers lost with the breeze. She took a deep breath, and then turned to Emma, a smile blooming on her face. "We are free," she whispered softly, the weight of dread evaporating, clarity filling the spaces once clouded with fear. Emma smiled, brightly, innocence blooming within her, a reminder that sometimes darkness could only steal the light until you remembered what it was you were fighting for. "I love you, Mommy," she said, her innocent heart strong against anything that lay waiting. "I love you too, Em, always." And with that, they stepped forward together, an invitation to a future alive with possibility, a promise to never forget, but always escape. As they entered their home, a whisper danced through the air, like the flutter of wings. "You are free now." It was the heartbeat of hope. It echoed through the spaces that darkness had once claimed. It shimmered like gold, resolute against any shadows that dared to rise again. And here's the moment to take action. You need to subscribe now to our channel, so you don't miss upcoming exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let us know you enjoy this content. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. as we love hearing from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything to us.